Welcome to African Teapot Podcast. My name is Exy.
And my name is Linie. Join us as we journey through Africa's vast variety of culture and heritage.
We explore issues most African families face, both home and abroad. Make sure to like, share, and follow this podcast. Join the conversation on social media and let your voice be heard. Hello guys, and welcome back to another episode on African Teapot. Today's episode is titled Travel Abroad. But before we get into all of that stuff, I want to say hello to someone else sitting by me, giving me an attitude today.
Hi guys, I am not giving her an attitude. It's me, my always cheerful and smiley self. How have you been? How's your month been? What's up? What's new?
Can I answer? Me. My month has been okay. It was my birthday last month, and you joined me in celebrating, even though you're giving me a slight attitude because I dragged for us to come for recording.
Hi, everyone out there having a birthday. How was your birthday? Happy future birthdays. Happy past birthdays. If your birthday happened to have been last month.
But anyways, guys, it was my birthday. It was all fun. I didn't do much this year, but yeah, I did spend it with my parents and, of course, Linie, Lyris, and my brother, Elmi. You've already heard them on the podcast and most of the friends that were there. But anyways, before I get into the distractions, like we said, we're just going to jump into, for you guys to listen to this audio. It's by Linda from Nigeria and her experience or why she chose to embark on the journey from Nigeria to Italy, right, by crossing the Mediterranean.
When I lost my parents, I have no choice than to embark on this journey. I was having no help, so I decided to leave to find a better life. The journey was very, very, very tough. We passed through a lot of stress. We passed through the desert. It's just like a hell, nobody to help. Few survived it, many died in the desert. It's a deadly journey, a very risky one. It's just between life and death.
Did you say you were pregnant?
Yeah, I'm pregnant.
Were you worried for your baby?
I was very, very scared. I was like, I'm running for my life, and now this, what am I going to do?
Where is the father?
The father is in Libya, so the father, I believe, is going to come very soon.
As you guys heard, what stood out to me from this audio is Linda being pregnant and her husband still being in Libya while she has been rescued. By the way, just to give you guys a little bit background, in this audio, she has been rescued by these humanitarian ships that are they kind of go along the coast of Libya to rescue people on those flimsy boats. They put them in, I would say that, for lack of a better word. Yeah. So this boat was already the little boat they had was already kind of sinking.
Float?
I guess it's a float. You know, we're going to put these videos up anyways. I'm sure by now, if you're listening, it's already up. But this little float was already sinking before the rescue ship got there. So she was just trying to say why she left her country and, everything else that happened. So, Lynn, what do you think about what Linda said?
That's sad. Like, there's so many different ways to look at the situation. For someone to let go of his wife who is pregnant across this journey, it either has to be like out of this world desperation, the situation is dire, that bad, or at some level it's got to be ignorance. You don't know what's on the other side. You hear it's tough, you hear it's hard, but you don't get the full scope of it versus you get the full scope of it and it's still hopeless staying where you're at.
True. Because she said it there that her dad died and there was nobody to help her and stuff. And she said she was scared. And then this also highlights some of the things most migrants face, which is separation from their loved ones, right? Sometimes people just interpret, well, you're abroad, so everything has to be okay or you should be fine. But they forget to understand that you are separated from your loved ones when you are taking this journey. And most often, they really don't know if you're going to make it, especially because you guys understand the means that we Linda uses is one of the many means that people use to get into these countries illegally, right? Yeah. So sometimes they spend even double the amount if you were to spend legally, right? Sometimes because a lot happens, right? Living from one country to the other, you have expenditures that you really can't explain to people. And that happens. And I think her case was just sad, where she's like separated from
sad. And
her husband.
You know what I think about? You take your last earnings, savings to go across this journey. Some people don't even make to go to a place where you're not sure you would ever get out of that level of poverty, right?
Right.
Because of you're going to greener pastures. So my question is, could that money be used where you're at to better yourself where you're at?
$1 million question. So we did stats and we gathered some information by statista.com and pewresearch.org. Again, we are going to include that on the show notes. But Europe is ranked as the leading destination for Africans in 2020. That's when this research was done. And about 11 million African-born migrants live in Europe countries within the year of 2020. 5 million in Asia and about 3 million in North America. Since 2010, most years have seen a rise in migrants from sub-Saharan Africa to Europe. Okay, I just summarized that because the numbers were staggering. I just summarized that for you to have an idea of how many people are coming and how many people these humanitarian boats were claiming to rescue each and every single day. Like 600 people or more in each boat every single time that they did a rescue. And sometimes these rescues may be 3 boats a day or so. The same thing with people. These are people leaving. So people generally would travel from whatever country to the Sahara, which is in North Africa. We know that's a desert. So they cross the desert and then they get to Libya. And then from Libya, you have to pay and look for people that are going to put you on a boat. And again, these floats, I will call them, they are not boats. These are floats. And these floats are overpacked with people. And that's why millions of people have died in the Mediterranean because of these flimsy boats, people panicking, dying, including children. You see kids. If you go on our Instagram, you're going to see the videos there. You see kids. It's just sad. It's sad.
Just like backpacks, some who are being carried, and you see,
babies.
And you see a mom climbing this steep hill, breastfeeding a baby at the same time. Mind you, I bet she hasn't eaten, right? And she's like, how, like, this is sad. Like, how did we let our continent, our country fall apart so bad that our citizens are having to go through this for a better place?
Sad indeed.
Make the other place a better place. We have to go through all of this to get to a better place. And we're still using our skills, our knowledge. We're using us. It's not like when we go over to this other country, we're like magically reborn with some skills. We go to school, we do all of that, yes. But the potential, it's the person. So why is this potential unused where we're at, and we have to go somewhere else to use this potential? I'm talking and I can point a finger at myself too.
Yeah, why are we here?
Yeah, exactly.
Magical question, because those of you listening will be like, well, what are you doing over there and why are you covering it? So we are all thinking about it. And before we go into the reasons why people choose to travel abroad, let's listen to is it Yushuba? Hopefully I'm saying it right. Yushuba John. He's a migrant from Gambia. Let's listen to his experience or what he thinks after he was rescued off of this float into the humanitarian boat.
The starting song was happy. But after, when you run about 1 hour, 2 hours, others start complaining, others start, vomiting, others say that they feel the boat leaking before we move at Libya. Every minute we are expecting that we will go down. Every minute we are expecting. The Libya is more getting worse. It's more getting worse than it is. Times police are disturbing people. Sometimes they rob your money. You cannot define who is the police and who is not the police, because all of them are with guns. I pay 750 dinar to leave Libya to come to Italy. If I take out that money, it cannot take me to Gambia back.
And what about your family in Gambia?
I want to see them again, definitely. My mom, I cannot forget her, definitely. I know the day I will call him and tell him that I'm in Italy, he will not believe him. Definitely, I cannot explain much, because if I explain, I can cry even, about it. I like my mom, yeah. I like my mom. I don't know others, but my family, I must tell them to stop. Don't try this way. Don't try it.
Now, he's drew out the emotion. I don't know if it's because it's a guy from Linie. I don't know why, but he got emotional saying that he likes his mother. You could tell he misses his mom. And then he goes ahead to emphasize, if you listened, he had just been rescued, and he emphasized that he will not tell somebody to embark on this journey. Yeah. And whatever money he's got left on him can't take him back to Gambia. So the only option he has is to forge ahead. He can't turn around, right? But he knows his parents will be so happy, and his family will be so happy to hear that he's alive and he's in Italy.
Because you can see him thinking about it. Some of them you can see regret, which is understandable, and some of them it's still amazing. Like you see sheer determination. It's like even if you tell them, hey, I'll pay you to go back, they're not going back.
Mm-hmm. And that's why, again, reasons why people travel abroad, right? One of them is safe haven. You ask safe haven from what exactly? From politics or social persecution. People coming from third world countries, our governments are already corrupt. Like, you can't really rely on them. The unemployment is extremely high. You have countries that unemployment is like 80%, right? Yeah. So you have people that are educated most often, but the opportunities for jobs are not really there. So there is this belief that when they travel out of the country, then they're going to make greener pastures, especially with what they see off of social media. And what some of us, when we get to Europe, what we sell them and what we tell them back home, right? So it's kind of like it's easy breezy in Europe or North America. Like everything is easier than what is back in the country. And when we say social persecution, it comes from, it could be your religion, it could be sexual orientations, right? A lot of people are persecuted for that. It could be tradition or culture. Some people probably have arranged marriages. Some are underage marriages, right? The last time we did the FGM, female circumcision, genital circumcision, and many people flee from areas like that. And so you have a lot of people looking for safe haven. Sometimes even famine, hunger, right? Causes situations like that, especially from East Africa. So all of these people are looking for safe haven. And so that's one reason that you see them embarking on these risky journeys, like putting your life to cross across the Mediterranean and you can't swim to save a fly. You can't swim, but you're ready to put yourself in a float to sail all the way to Italy. Again, because sometimes these smugglers lie, right? They tell you, oh, the boat is going to get there. These smugglers are just praying that you get rescued by these humanitarian ships.
I mean, and some of them don't care.
They just want your money.
How are you going to come back and find them? And the sad thing is that man is trying to feed his own family.
That's what poverty does, and that's what desperation does.
Who do you even get upset at?
That's exactly what John said. Remember, he said he paid a certain amount from Libya to those guys to get there. And that amount can't even take him back to Ghana. So it means he kind of was already regretting it in Libya. But what he had couldn't take him back home because he crossed through the Sahara, right? So now he's stuck. He just has to forge ahead. It's just sad. And then another reason, most often, is that people travel to the Western countries for a better education. Some careers are not possible in some African countries, right? So if you have this dream of being an astronaut or whatever, right? Some careers are limited per certain countries because, again, the governments just don't have that. They just don't have that capability. They just don't have the finances or equipment to train you, for instance, to a specific job desire you've always had, right? And sometimes because you also want to be, you want to be recognized in a bigger stage. You want to work for the UN, you want to work for the Red Cross, right? There are certain things that push you, and you believe that stepping out of whatever African country you're in and studying abroad is going to give you a bigger, stepping stool. It's going to give you bigger opportunity to be recognized or seen, right? And again, opportunity to do those things. You're going to be able to work with researchers you've probably read in books, seen on TV. You have that chance of doing that. So many people go for educational purposes, for a better education. I know a lot of people who do. Another reason most often is chasing dreams, Linie. So people have personal aspirations, competition with others, or pride of your family. So when they say chasing dreams, it has different tentacles when it comes to that. Because sometimes people say, well, someone is chasing your dream, and it's just like, oh, for a personal reason. Sometimes your dream may be the dream of your family, especially coming from Africa, right? It's your family's dream you should be a surgeon. Your dad wants you to be a surgeon.
Because when you see kids crossing, they didn't pay for it.
Nope.
They did not pay for it.
Yeah, because we had kids there like 12, 10. We had that baby. The guy who was like, the wife had a baby.
Yeah.
Or the woman who is pregnant. The child didn't pay to be there.
You know what I wonder? I wonder if the reason why a couple of pregnant women are crossing is because you only have to pay for one compared to if you stay, you have to pay for two. And
probably if you stay, you have to do this journey that you're uncertain with or for with a kid. With a newborn. So that's why when I saw that family, the guy and his wife had the baby still wrapped, I'm like, the first thing that popped in my head, the mosquitoes in there. I thought, I get what you mean by she's living on breast milk, but I'm thinking, the mosquitoes, right, and infection, that's what I thought anyways. So chasing dreams sometimes also can be competition. People have selfish reasons for traveling, guys. Just because their friends are abroad popping bottles on social media and stuff, we are trying to keep this real. These people also want to travel, so they're going to do the same thing. I want to travel, so I'm going to be like Linie. I want to travel, so I'm going to be like Lyris. Yeah. You have people traveling for completely selfish reasons. Not all of it is, reasons that are justifiable, but just for selfish reasons. And again, guys, just to reiterate, this is about people taking a risk of traveling through channels that are not legal and are not safe, okay? So if you're traveling for personal reasons and you're using the right route, you understand, it's your right. But we are talking about risking your life and the life of your kids because you're competing with another person or you're competing with another family or just doing it not for yourself, but doing it for your family name.
It's like the overarching picture, like when you're home, the unemployment rate is, like you said, crazy. It's like
80%.
80%. You have all this education, you have all these degrees, you can barely eat, you watch your parents go through all these struggles to send you to school. And the last thing you're like, hey, I've dreamt of all of this. It's greener pastures. Like you have, it's the African version of the American dream.
Right.
America calls it the American dream. We call it greener pastures. That's what we're seeing is the possibility to have, it's the possibility of endless growth to have what you want. So we go through all of this because I can go to America. I can be anything I want to be. Yep. That's true. America, Italy, wherever it is you're going, it gives you like massive opportunities. congratulations to the people who make it. I think you're a tough cookie. I don't know how you make it. I think that's military boot camp there for any inexperienced person. Like,
True.
At least in military boot camp, like, there's people there to fix you. I mean, you ain't starving, right?
Yes.
But I don't know. This is torture. And when I see 4-year-olds, 5-year-olds going through it, do they even know what they signed up for?
And then when you see the news and you have those floats that sink, right?
Halfway sunk.
Yes, it sinks, and they tell you 1,000 migrants died or 5,000 migrants died. And you watch the news and you see people being carried out their bodies, and sometimes they don't even have identification papers because they've been robbed, right? And things like that. So the family is just sitting there. Probably they would only suspect something is wrong maybe after a month of silence or something, because some of these journeys take 2 weeks for you to go from one little town of safety to the next. Yeah. So they just keep waiting endlessly. They have no idea. There's no phone number to dial. Like,
do you imagine waiting on the other side for weeks and weeks? And
exactly.
Sometimes you actually hear from your family member in like months. Sometimes you never hear. So
that's it.
You know they're dead, right? A year, 2, 3. Who are you even gonna ask? Like, are you gonna?
Because you don't know, because it wasn't done legally. You don't even know in what part of the journey did they stop. You know what I mean? Because if I know someone is legally leaving Cameroon to the U.S., well, maybe I can call Brussels, right? The airport of Brussels, where I know they were landing. Maybe I can call the airport in Zurich because I know that's where they were landing. Then I call Washington, right? And you can kind of map out what happened to your loved one. But when someone just tells you, I'm going through the Sahara. I'm leaving Gambia. I'm going through the Sahara to Libya. I'm going to cross the Mediterranean to Sicily, Italy. Right?
Yeah.
You don't. So if they get to the Sahara and maybe they tell you, well, my agent told me it's going to take 10 days to cross through the Sahara. And then now maybe it took him 2 weeks to cross through the Sahara. You are in that agony for 2 weeks waiting until this guy gets to Libya and begs a phone to let you know he's in Libya. And then when he's crossing the Mediterranean, it's another dead zone.
Yeah. And we've been talking about the journey, and then you get to the point where they talk about, you're here, okay, let's see the greener pasture, right?
Yeah.
So you get to this point where you have all these expectations, and you're like, okay.
Yep. And Linie just took us to the next part. Expectation versus realities. So we have the last video or audio we want you guys to listen to, and this is people crossing the Darien Gap.
It's a little longer.
It's a little longer, but you guys need to listen to it because it was eye-opening for us when we listened and watched it. So the Darien Gap, these are guys now crossing into North America. So the last audios you listened to were people crossing the Mediterranean Sea to Italy. So now these guys are trying to cross from South America, right, into the U.S.
Yeah, and mind you, this place is known, like, it's known for the wetness, the rain, the swampiness.
No laws.
Like, when you see it, you can't, like, I don't, like, when the video started and you're looking at it, like, from up top drone view, I'm like,
that's a jungle. Yeah.
I'm like, there's a path?
There's no road in there.
So how do they even know where you're going? But anyways, I'll let you listen.
Yeah, just listen and then we'll come back after that.
Where South America meets Central America lies one of the world's wildest jungles. It's roadless, lawless, and almost entirely uninhabited. Its name, the Darien Gap. Underneath the soaring jungle canopy, migrants from around the world risk death crossing the jungle in a desperate bid to reach the US and Canada. They have no map and no instructions on how to make it through one of the world's most dangerous migration routes.
I would like to send a message to anyone who is thinking of doing this route. It's very dangerous. If I knew this, I wouldn't have done it.
Many migrants spend a week or even 2 on this trail before they reach a village and safety. But these journeys started long before. Migrants from Asia, the Middle East, and Africa flew into Ecuador or Brazil, where visa requirements are somewhat lax. Haitians also used this route as a springboard north. But to get from Colombia to Panama, they have to cross the Darien Gap by foot. It's the only missing 66-mile break in the Pan American Highway from the tip of Argentina up to Alaska. At dusk, a group of Cameroonians and Pakistanis arrived. They were exhausted and relieved to find the last spot on the trail where they can get hot food. Morning broke with torrential rain. The Darien is one of the wettest places on the planet. The environment could hardly be more different from the high mountains of Pakistan this group of friends call home.
The Taliban targeted our family from time to time. That is why I had to leave my country.
We packed our food for 5 days, and with guides we hired, followed the migrants as they set out, on a day-long ascent of a mountain ahead. The steep and slippery terrain was tough for everyone, but nearly impossible with an injury. This woman from Cameroon could barely put weight on her knee. Exhaustion took over.
God, the pain is too much.
Yeah.
The pain is more than me.
Up the mountain, the smuggler the Cameroonians and Pakistanis hired demanded payment. As we hiked, young men carrying square backpacks filled with bricks of cocaine passed us. We were told to expect their heavily armed security patrolling, so we put our camera away.
I'm full. My food.
Smugglers won't venture any farther into Panama, where they could face over a decade in prison if they're caught. This one, who didn't want his face shown, wished smugglers weren't prosecuted so they could help migrants safely complete their journey.
I've had to see mothers who tell their children they can't go on, to give themselves up to God. For anyone who has a family or kids, that breaks your heart.
Another smuggler, who can't be identified, told us he came across this migrant who had been injured and spent 2 weeks on this mountainside.
He was only crawling like a child. It's common. Most people who injure themselves die because there's no help for them.
From here on, migrants are on their own. The next morning, we came across George, a Cameroonian man. Injured, he had been left behind by his group. Then, forging ahead alone, he fell and dislocated his shoulder. Our guides popped it back into place. He was one of many Cameroonians on this trail who didn't want to be fully identified, fleeing a brutal conflict in his country.
You know, when you're running for your safety, you don't care what is happening to you. You don't care what is in front of you. You just want to have a safe ground.
Just like his group of friends had, we left him behind, hobbling onwards. Before long, a large group of Haitians and Sri Lankans appeared. Jean Delicat, a father of 2.
It's been 6 days that we're walking without stopping. The children cry of hunger. There's no food. There's nothing.
There was nothing else for them to do but try to go ahead. These Haitians had been living legally in Brazil or Chile. Among them were 6 children and 3 pregnant women. Dusk fell, and the Haitians made camp high above the river. It was hard to find wood dry enough to make a fire, and even harder to find food to cook. Dawn broke after a night of heavy rain. They've barely slept.
They are soaking wet and very hungry, but in fact, we are stuck here for now. That's because overnight the rain made the river rise dramatically.
It was too high to cross. The rivers often pull children from their parents' arms and sweep migrants to their death. Marooned, with unwelcome time to think, worries took over the Haitians, like Rosie Bantour.
Sometimes I think that if I was not this poor, I wouldn't have got into this situation.
The river level dropped, and we finally set out again. But these migrants joined the legions of survivors crossing the Darien Gap. As the river opened up, a driver and his outboard canoe appeared. We were on our way, finally, to a village. This night, the group made its way out of the Darien Gap, but the rest of their journey is as opaque as the black waters ahead.
That's hard, especially when I saw a lot of people from Cameroon.
Yeah.
It's sad.
It was mostly Haitians.
Please, guys, we're gonna
Cameroonians.
have these like pieces of these videos on our Instagram page for you to check out before, just so you can get a whole idea.
And then you see the lady where she's like, I can't, and you see her fellow. When I say brothers, you know what I mean, not like really blood brothers.
Yeah, you could hear the pigeon and identify.
But you can see them carrying her, trying not to leave a person behind, because you're thinking like, hey, we're in this together, we're going, and so you can see the younger guys trying to carry her, and she's like, I can't. But think about it, she's a lady, a little. You can tell she's not the youngest person,
yeah.
So she's middle aged, and you can see the younger. You're like. So now it's almost like you're leaving your mom behind, right?
Or your older sister behind, or your auntie behind. And then did you see the remains? They showed on the side where the smugglers said they knew the guy and he was crawling to death.
And they had to leave him.
Oh my God.
They themselves left him and he died.
Did you see the tides? When the rain fell, and there, you remember in the audio, it tells you, in video, it's raining like 24/7.
So your journey
you have
is
pregnant
down.
women. You have families with kids that have run out of food. Then the worst part was the lady who was molested, who was assaulted. Because these smugglers are thinking
you're carrying drugs.
And looking for money in your private parts. Worse things happen.
I'm not even going to make you search for my money that hard. Like, bro, like, you're going to take it one way or another. Like, just take it. Like,
and then just think of their husbands and boyfriends having to stand there and watch that. But anyways, we watched this or listened to this video or audio, however you're listening to it, to get into the next segment, which is expectation versus reality. Traveling dangers and safety issues are a big deal. For those of us who are listening back home, we have listeners who are back in Cameroon and in African countries. Kenya is one of them. Ghana, a lot of African countries. You guys listen. I know it's easy to listen to us and go, well, you're already there. So you can say that. One, true. Some people came through legal means, right? Means they didn't have to use these methods to get here. But sometimes I would encourage people to do research. Like, to do research about this, it took me, like, it was 3 days for me to get a whole, back understanding for it. Because we didn't travel like this. And so it was really eye-catching and opening for us to watch and listen. And there's a lot more, but we just used these parts, just for the sake of the episode. We couldn't use everything on here. And when we say this, the general sense is, oh, you're over there, it's easy for you to say that. It's so tough back home. Yeah, it is tough back home, but sometimes when it's tough and you're around loved ones, you're going to figure something out, guys. I don't know. If your situation ain't that bad, then this risk ain't worth it. Like, that's just what I'm going to say. You heard them, many people saying how they were robbed. Many people talking about rape, right? You saw death, right? The records show a high number of deaths in overpacked boats, like the one we saw. Like, if you look at the video, a lot of people drown in the Mediterranean and Pacific every single week from trying to smuggle themselves into Italy. The same thing happening in the Darien Gap with people trying to get into North America.
And you're thinking, how?
Is that reason coming to compete with somebody else or just coming to pop bottles? Is it worth it? The death recorded in jungles in South America and Mexico on the way to US or Canada is mind-boggling. Like, we need to double think our reasons sometimes. And then, Linie, I'm trying to think if you can think of other stuff that jail time. Jail time is one other reason. Sometimes people that are traveling, they just tell you everything is rosy. When you get to the border, sometimes you need to have some jail time, right?
I mean, it's illegal.
It's illegal. Or you are kept in these camps.
And in the camps.
And these camps are unsafe. They are not like the houses you're seeing in Vegas on TV when people are talking to you.
Some of them are tents.
Okay? So you are there for God knows how long until your case gets heard, right? So people don't tell you that over. They just tell you, well, you're going to go to jail. I mean, the jail is easy. You're going to eat. You're going to die. No. Now the borders are having overflows in all the countries. All the countries are tightening. According to the GIS report, immigration from Africa to Europe will intensify over the coming decade. So how somebody traveled 5 years ago, probably is going to be different now. And in the next decade, that's 10 years from now, it's even going to get tighter and worse. So the sanctions are getting worse, guys. So your uncle who traveled 12 years ago and it was easy for him, it's not going to be easy for you. And it may not even work for you.
Because think about it, if they made it easy for you and everyone knew it was easy and it was so rosy, everyone will come across. So with the rise of immigrants, they're having to tighten their belt to discourage people from coming across.
Exactly. So this is not us, okay? This is the GIS report. It's not us doing it. And we see it here when we sit and watch their politics on TV all the time. Their borders and them trying to tighten and make immigration laws become harder and difficult for immigrants is like, we see that it is part of their agenda. It's their country and they want to keep it that way. But when we tell people back home, everyone thinks, well, you were there and you're already making it, so I can make it just as you did. But we came years ago. So as the years go, it just becomes worse and worse.
Yeah, and I mean, I didn't go through what these people went through because I, to be honest, don't think I would have made it.
I wouldn't have.
I don't
to
know
be honest
how
with you.
The pregnant ladies or the kids make it. That's why I'm like, y'all need a medal or something. Like, I don't know how anyone makes it through those conditions. I don't know how. And funny story is, I'd actually once, I don't know if I've ever said what I do, but I'd actually once taken care of a person who did the cross.
Mm-hmm.
And we were treating for a respiratory illness. We didn't know, because guess what? Going through those deserts is not something we come across when we treat people with community-acquired pneumonia and all these things. They literally had to run through the respiratory panel and start running for viruses. Like, it doesn't come to you and you're like, okay, this virus probably wasn't even gotten in your home country, wasn't gotten in our country. It was gotten in the journey, some parasite along the journey where no one lives. So
yeah, because that was terrible. And you can see the kind of water they're drinking.
I mean, like, you have to survive. You have to drink something.
You have to.
And so you are sold this version. You get over here. You see people with master's degree being cleaners. Back home, you had a secretary. You could send your kids to school, your mom, and you wanted greener pastures. My thing is, let's think of the path to the greener pastures, right? Let's have a plan. Let's have a goal. But you don't think about it when you come through those means, and sometimes you're lucky. Maybe you go through the system and they give you some paperwork where you can work. Think about the person who comes in, doesn't even find that system. Now you're illegal. You can't even work.
You can't go back home either.
Under the table, and they're paying you below minimum wage because
they know you don't have papers, so they'll give you below minimum wage.
And then you left back home, probably where now everyone's like, okay, you went through all of this. They sold everything to pay this crazy amount for you to get here.
Sometimes you sell pieces of land,
How
your inheritance.
Do you explain this? Like, what you sold to your family home, that's not what it is. Or what your family was even sold is not what you're getting.
Yep. And just to say one, right? Another thing is extortion from travel agents or fraudsters. Yeah. That's another issue coming out of Africa a lot. Because you are so desperate and you so want to go travel out because it's so terrible back in your country. You want to leave, that these guys extort money out of you for travel requirements that don't make any sense. If you want to travel abroad, go online, go on Google and read some of these informations for yourself. Do extensive research. You can't be traveling thousands and millions of kilometers from your home and you don't put in the effort and you're just listening to some guy who is telling you that he's an expert in another man's country. We are just not even talking about Europe, because I'm thinking even within African countries. You have people who leave Cameroon and go to work in Libya, and then they tell you like, oh, the family I went, my host family seized my passports and documents in Kuwait and places, and now you can't return. Now you're working like slavery over there. And you've had ridiculous statements like that. You've had people in the Western world promise you jobs. And then when you cross and you get here, they take your passport and stuff, and then you become a sex worker. We have seen and heard these stories times and times again. If anything seems too good to be true,
because it's too good to be true.
Probably it's too good to be true. Okay, guys? It is not worth it. You can't have degrees and then you can have 500, let me say in Cameroon money, you can have 500,000. You can have 1 million. If you can have 1 million and you have an education, invest in your country if you're not sure of where you're going, especially when you don't have documents. Especially when you don't have somebody who is direct, like a family member in that country telling you, hey, I'm going to hold your hand until you get here. It's different if your older brother, your parent, your sister tells you, hey, I'm going to ensure you get here. And you know what I mean? They are on top of it. That is different from you just believing in these travel agents. And you're going to come through like the Daring Gap or come through the Mediterranean and you've never been close even 6 inches to a pool in your life. It's ridiculous. And now you're traveling with kids or pregnancy. That makes it worse. And for you thinking that, oh, when you are in Africa, like in Cameroon, oh, the government isn't employing you. In the Western world, the government doesn't employ everybody that's working. Their economy is being boosted by the private sector. There are people's personal businesses that employ people. Here in America, it's run predominantly by small businesses, not the big corporations and not the government. But for some reason in Africa, we all think the government should give everybody jobs. So if you have money, invest in you and take that capital and invest. It makes no sense. If I call a friend right now and I tell them, hey, go work at the gas station in Cameroon for a year, right? And then I'm going to, whatever you save out of the year, I'm going to give you the equivalent to it and you open a business. Guess what they're going to tell me?
You work in gas station.
I am a graduate. I can't work in a gas station. But guess what?
Here.
He's going to sell his father's land. He's going to take all his savings, right? Pay smugglers and fraudsters crazy amounts of money, double what people used to travel. Travel here through these unsavory conditions, right? All this stress, get through it, get here, don't have legal papers, and would still come here with a master's degree and is working at a gas station over here.
Yep.
8 hours a day and working barely the minimum wage. It makes no sense. You can't be, if you have that kind of education and background and you have some money back home, invest. Later you can travel. They are different. You can travel for visits, you can travel for whatever. But again, hopefully you guys listen to this. All right. Anyways, another reason, before we have digressed way off, but one other reason or one other aspect of this expectation versus reality is sometimes there is destitution when you're coming here and you are not legal, right? There are chances of you being destitute or you have no trusted place to live. Some people just come here, there is no family you're coming to stay with. So when you get here, after all this robbery and smugglers have, gone through you and dealt with you, now even when you get here illegally, you don't know where to start.
Yeah.
Right? So we need to be careful of that. One other thing, Linie, that I thought of was the exaggerated financial gains that people tell people back home is over here.
They lie. Like, you remember the guy who said, why can't I send him, see me, this one needs this app to be perfect. So why can you not send me money? They told me there's a machine that you go and press it.
Mind you, he was talking of the ATM.
Guys, he's talking of the ATM. He's talking of the ATM where every dollar that goes in there,
you earned it.
You earned it. He's like, press the money. I'm like, what? Do you know how long it takes for you to sink in this person's thinking of an ATM? Because in your mind, you're like, look, does he think if I knew where to hit a button and get all this money, you think I would work an 8 to 5? Bro, I'm probably going to work an 8 to 9 or 9 to 10.
Oh, Lord.
Twice a week.
And to add to that, they are not aware of the long hours of work you have to work to meet up with your bills and family responsibilities over here. it's adding to what you're saying. Because sometimes you're like, oh my gosh, they pay you $4,000 a month. That's like in Cameroon money, that's approximately 2 million, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, man, if you give me 2 million, guys, the standard of living is different, right? So the difference in America or the Western world or Canada or Europe, wherever you're going, or you think it's going to be that better, is you are guaranteed that if you try really hard, you will find a job. That's if you're legal. You will find a job that is going to pay you your qualifications, right? Now, this is where the trick comes in. When you work $4,000, your rent by itself, if you're living in a really nice apartment, like here in Dallas, is probably $2,000, right?
That's half of it.
Okay? So that's already half of that 4 million you're thinking. Now that person hasn't paid electricity, hasn't paid water, hasn't paid health insurance, hasn't paid car insurance. That's if at that point they have a car, right? Even if they don't, they have to pay transportation, they have to pay food, they have to pay their phone bill, right? All of this has to come from that money. Then when they have that little change, they have to send something back home to whoever they have home, right? And they have to save for a rainy day. You're getting, so at the end of the day, probably that person has $300 or $400 to spare, right? And that's probably for someone who doesn't have an immediate family.
Oh,
if they don't have kids.
And then when you even say, oh, that's a lot of money to spend. Guys, I went to the grocery store the other day and my grocery list was a pack of water, a gallon of milk,
eggs,
2 loaves of bread, and I forgot what the last thing was. And I literally spent almost, it was like $48. So, and the stuff I got, I can't eat that for a week.
No, you can't.
Because, okay, I mean, unless you want me to do for 2 loaves of bread, milk, water, and I forgot maybe eggs was the other thing I bought. But you can't. So that's what I'm trying to make you understand. For one person to feed a week, let's say you spend averagely like $100 and that person has $300 left. Think about it. It's not even enough to feed them through the week.
It's not.
Through the month. I'm sorry.
Through the month. It's not. So sometimes I think there is this, you just take the money and think of how it would help you where you are, but you're forgetting that that money, according to the standard of where that person is living, that person is left with barely change, right? So if you traveled with your parents selling and getting into debt back home just to send you here and you get here, and this 4,000 is for an average job that we are considering, it's okay, right? So if you come illegally, probably you won't be making that much. There's a high chance you're not going to be making that much. You're going to be making way less.
And that's the thing, like when you say this, it's almost like don't be here. But that's not the point. There is greener pasture. There's people who, hey, back home you wanted to be, I don't know, a singer-songwriter. Didn't get you much. Some people are successful back home, but maybe the level of success here is way more than you thought, right?
Right.
Maybe back home, maybe as a nurse you're earning more here than you were back home.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Maybe here you were able to be an environmentalist or whatever it is you do.
Yes.
Possibilities are endless, but you have to see those possibilities are endless when there's a chance for you to get them. Some methods, it'll take you almost 15 years to get it. You come here when you're 40. So you eventually have the chance where you could possibly earn your first legal dollar at 55. Like,
I mean, and you have kids and a family to feed.
Why? Like, it's... I don't know. This is not religion, but you can almost think of it as the religious way when they say good things come to the people who are patient and who wait and who do things the right way. Mm-hmm. It's literally it.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
There is no greener pasture if you can't have a job.
No,
there
isn't.
Is no getting, I'm going over to America, to Italy for school, where the method you're coming through, you don't have the paperwork to enroll.
Yep, that brings it to one other myth that we just want to debunk, which is the expenses of studying abroad. The money is crazy. What they will ask you. Most people abroad, the citizens there, like Americans here, they take loans to go to school.
And they pay literally
They pay those loans.
Or like 1/3 of what international students
pay. They pay less than what they are asking you, who is coming from out of the country, to pay, and still they'll probably take their lifetime to pay it off because it's a loan. They would be paying back that loan in little bits over a significant amount of years. But you who is coming from abroad, they expect you to have that money now, pay it now, and there is zero loan for you. Especially when you're coming illegally or when you're just coming like, hey, I'm coming on a student visa. So some of you would sell property to have that bank statement to reflect the first semester or the first year. What happens after that? You can't pay that. You can't pay that because even them who created the system, they don't pay that money out like cash out of pocket. They don't.
They can't afford it.
They can't afford it. How do you want to afford it from a third world country when your parents are like barely making it? When you yourself, you're barely making it. That is another lie people tell you. Because when you are international student in these countries, you pay more than what their nationals pay. If you didn't know, now you've heard it. So please do your research. Let's not even get into integration into the social system, right? When you travel over here, people don't tell you that. When I traveled, I remember the first time I had my first dose of racism. I think we would say this we'll just have another episode for this, but racism, bias, stereotypes about people from Africa, the cultural differences, and the struggle to prove that you are capable, right? That means doing what you know you can do. The fact that you need to prove to people, hey, you know how to speak English and you've always spoken English from birth, or spoken French from birth, or Portuguese from birth, or Spanish from birth, or Swahili from birth. Nobody tells you that. Nobody tells you when you get to these countries, you have to start proving yourself from the bottom. Nobody tells you when you come with your degrees and get here, they don't care about those degrees. You have to start all afresh again. So if you smuggle yourself all through these ways or come through the school and think, well, I'm going to flash my degree from boy, I'm just going to go show them in an office and they're going to give me a job. No. First, you need to start proving you can speak and write English. You need to go to school to prove that you know basic arithmetic or math. It's crazy.
No,
or you need money to translate your degrees to their equivalent.
After you spent all you had just
getting here. Now you have to prove to them like, oh, you need to write your home country to give them equivalents and pay them so that they can equate your degrees from home to their degrees here. And guys, those degrees are never equated to what it is. So your A's there, suddenly you come here and your A's are like B+ at best.
Yep.
And it's their system. You can't argue it. So this is just to say we need to be careful when we are coming. We need to do proper research and you need to weigh your pros and cons. Weigh what you're leaving behind versus what you are going to get, right? What is a clear path towards what you're going to get? If your goal is just, I just want to go to the Western country, I think you should think bigger than that. If you're trying to use this route to get here, this doesn't mean if you're a nurse back home and you have your legal means to get here, please do, because definitely you have more opportunities, right? Because probably you're coming for your skill set. Isn't that it? That's totally different. But being a nurse or being a banker or a manager and you're quitting your job to get here with zero paper and then you start working like someone who is from high school.
Crazy.
That's crazy. And then they are paying you even less than the high schooler because you don't have papers. It's crazy, guys. It's crazy. So please think about it. Those of us who have young, loved ones back home, be honest. And I have a question. Those of us back home, have you ever thought why people have to stay here for so many years? Sometimes the average person who migrated from Africa has to stay here for so many years before they make the first trip back home. Have you ever thought why?
It's
Linie? Exactly. It's expensive.
You need to pay for 2 lives, one here, one back home at the journey. And then there's the expectations on the other side.
So when you get here and boom, you're already in the system, a system that you need credit to buy stuff versus having money. So guys, when you see those cars people are posting, you see those clothes they are wearing, Linie, you see those big houses, what's going on? It's on credit. They are not paying for that stuff with cash like we pay in Africa. It's not a cash society. They are paying for it with credit. So they'll probably pay that house for the next 40 years, 15 years. Okay, they are paying for that car for the next 5 years. So they're driving it, but the car company still owns it. That's how their system works. So don't get carried away. Don't get deceived. Okay, so whatever life you can make, anyways, if whatever is yours is going to meet you wherever it is. If that was your destiny, you should be in the Western world, it's going to happen. If it's the destiny that you'll make it back in your home country, it will still happen. But I think we should try to be more self-reliant in our home countries, trying to build yourself there first. Then when you have an opportunity to travel and you've weighed your risk, your pros and cons, right, and you've mapped it out well, then you travel, especially when you have family. Because seeing these babies on board, Linie, I don't know about you, seeing these babies on board and stuff, that's just quite a sight to see. And pregnant women, it's saddening.
See baby girls with your little cute pink backpacks, I'm like, oh, sweetheart.
And you have shoes on the trail and skeletons and skulls. It's sad.
But again, okay,
who's I think we've come to the end. We're done.
But thank you for sticking with us, for listening to us. Please go watch the videos, check them out.
Yes, they'll be up on Instagram.
It does another thing when there's an image added to it. Remember to rate this podcast, join the conversation on Instagram, and we're going to see you again next month.
Thank you for listening and hope you join me for the next episode. You can always reach us via email at africanteapot@gmail.com and follow us on Instagram at African_teapot.